I'm Danielle Boyd, 34 years old, and last March I entered my great-grandmother's library to find 217 vacant shelves. My 10-year-old daughter remained in the vehicle, completing her turkey sandwich, since I had instructed her to stay put while I fetched an item swiftly. I fetched nothing at all. Nothing remained to fetch. The space held the familiar aroma it had always possessed. Paper, leather, beeswax finish, yet now that aroma had no surface to cling to. My parents had disposed of every volume my great-grandmother had bequeathed to my daughter. They disposed of them for $165,000. They directed the funds toward building a media room for my sister's children. Surround sound, 6 leather loungers, and a popcorn device formed like a fire hydrant. What I carried out across the following 9 days never once involved lifting my voice. Yet it ultimately deprived my parents of the residence they had occupied for 31 years. And when I at last uttered the phrase that caused my mother's coffee cup to drop from her grasp, 3 neighbors were already filming on their devices. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is the place where we recount the silent form of payback, the sort that doesn't raise noise, doesn't shatter crockery, and doesn't cast you as the wrongdoer. If you've ever experienced relatives handling your child's legacy like everyday household trash, leave a note and be certain to subscribe so the following tale reaches you. Before I describe what they carried out, allow me to introduce Cordelia. Cordelia Ann Boyd was my great-grandmother. She was the initial female in our lineage to pursue higher education. Wellesley, class of 1956, English literature, and the final individual in the Boyd lineage who regarded books as holy artifacts. She obtained a reasonable inheritance from the goldsmith branch of the family, disposed of the jewelry enterprise in 1981, and devoted the subsequent 27 years to acquiring original editions of juvenile literature. Rackham drawings, Caldecott Award recipients from the 1930s, a Kelmscott Chaucer produced in 1896 on handmade linen sheets. 3 handwritten notes from Beatrix Potter exploring the drawings for the story of Jemima Puddleduck. 217 pieces altogether, indexed, evaluated, and positioned on the racks of the East Wing Library inside the family house in Whitfield, Vermont. In 2008, at 81 years of age, Cordelia founded the Cordelia Boyd Heritage Library Foundation, a 501c3, tax-free, nationally certified entity submitted with the Vermont Secretary of State. The volumes were formally shifted to the foundation and set under a lasting loan. They stayed within the family residence, and as compensation, the residents gained a provisional tax relief. That relief conserved approximately $30,000 annually in property levies. The arrangement carried one stipulation: the volumes must remain in the residence, unsold, and transferred to the succeeding direct heir. In 2020, 2 years prior to her passing, Cordelia inserted a concluding modification. She designated my daughter Ivy as the exclusive recipient. Ivy was 6. Cordelia positioned her in the mahogany reading seat beside the south window, revealed a green leather edition of The Wind in the Willows, 1908, featuring Arthur Rackham drawings and a gold-stamped binding, and declared, "These now belong to you, dear." On the inner front page of each volume appeared Cordelia's bookplate, manually etched in Art Nouveau design with a phrase in her personal script beneath: "For Ivy, who will keep them safe." Ivy contacted that phrase each occasion she revealed a volume. It was her ceremony. She never omitted it. My mother had been observing the assortment for 14 months. It commenced modestly, an observation at Thanksgiving supper in November 2024, while Ivy sat 3 seats distant consuming cranberry sauce with a fork. Those volumes are merely accumulating grime in that ancient, unsettling space. I recall the precise instant because Ivy raised her eyes from her dish, maintained my mother's stare for 2 complete seconds, then resumed consuming without utterance. My daughter was 9. She already grasped what my mother was attempting. Following Thanksgiving, the observations arrived monthly. "Darling, have you pondered what to do with all those aged volumes?" Vanessa's sons would truly appreciate that library area someday. They could convert it into a recreation space. Your father's joints cannot manage the East Wing steps anymore. Perhaps we should update. I offered the identical response each occasion. "They're not mine, Mom. They're on lasting loan to Ivy." And my mother invariably replied with the identical grin. The constricted one, the one that signified she had listened to me yet considered me incorrect. Cordelia and her enduring objects. Here is what I failed to comprehend until it grew irreversible. My mother's preoccupation with the volumes was not truly about currency. It concerned Cordelia. 14 years prior, Cordelia had revised her testament. She overlooked my mother wholly. Overlooked my father, bequeathed the property, the residence, the foundation, the library directly to me, and following me to Ivy. My mother had wed into the Boyd lineage at 22, expecting and distressed. She had nurtured 2 girls in that residence. She had arranged 31 Christmases. And Cordelia's testament declared, in the mildest lawful phrasing possible, that Margaret Boyd was not viewed as a genuine Boyd. That injury never sealed. It merely acquired keen points. 3 months before we departed for the camping excursion, my brother-in-law Brent uploaded anonymously on a scarce volume discussion board inquiring if anyone recognized a Manhattan trader for early 20th century juvenile literature original editions. I viewed the upload. I identified his screen identity. I assumed it was mere chance. That was my initial error. Each Saturday, I transported Ivy 40 minutes from our flat in Brattleboro to the family residence in Whitfield. My parents resided there permanently. They had for 3 decades. We attended the library. That was the understanding. Ivy possessed boundless entry to the assortment, and my parents obtained the $30,000 yearly tax advantage that accompanied sheltering it there. Ivy possessed a pattern. She would stride directly across the front corridor without acknowledging anyone, shove open the library entrance with her hip, and proceed to the 3rd rack on the south barrier. That's where the green leather wind in the willows resided. She'd extract it using both palms, invariably both palms, even though the volume weighed under a pound, transport it to the mahogany reading seat by the window, and settle. The seat was massive for her. Her feet hung 6 inches above the ground. She'd part the front cover, discover the bookplate, and follow Cordelia's script with her forefinger. For Ivy, who will keep them safe, prior to scanning even one term? Identical volume, identical seat, identical ceremony, each Saturday for 3 years. One afternoon, she informed me, the volume carried the scent of rainfall and ancient timber. I informed her it was the binding adhesive maturing and the spotting on the end sheets. She stated she favored her interpretation. I stated that was reasonable. The week prior to our departure for the camping excursion, Cordelia's tone returned to me the way it occasionally does. Not a recollection, more like a statement that emerges uninvited. The volumes are Ivy's legacy. Don't permit anyone to disregard. I considered phoning my mother and stating something decisive. Something regarding the Reddit upload. Regarding the tape measure Brent had been applying along the east wing skirting at Easter while he believed no one observed. I didn't phone. I convinced myself it was expert prudence. It was timidity. The two appear alike until the racks stand vacant. The Whitfield Research Library conducts a 9-day personnel retreat each March at a campground near Lake Willoughby in the Northeast Kingdom. I'd been participating since my 2nd year as chief archivist. This year, I brought Ivy. She packed 4 softcover books from the public library, a drawing pad, and a pencil holder with 6 2B pencils honed to matching tips. She did not pack any of the scarce volumes. She never extracted them from the library. That was part of the duty Cordelia had instructed her. You attend the volumes, you don't shift them. You are the one who journeys. My mother volunteered to monitor the residence while we were absent. Moisten the plants, gather the post, ensure the furnace pilot remained ignited. I stated that would be excellent. She messaged the night we departed. Enjoy yourself, dear. We've got matters managed here. I reviewed that message 3 times while seated on a downed birch trunk beside the lake, observing Ivy toast a marshmallow that was already beyond rescue. Something about the wording disturbed me. Matters managed, not the residence appears satisfactory or I'll watch over all. Matters managed, like a duty roster with a tick mark, not a kindness underway. I convinced myself I was examining too deeply into a message. My occupation is examining too deeply into records. Attribution, origin, the distinction between what a statement declares and what the composer truly intended. Sometimes a message is merely a message. That was my second error. We passed 9 days without mobile connection. Ivy concluded all 4 softcovers by day 5 and started filling the drawing pad with birds she observed from the pier. On the 7th evening, reclining in her sleeping bag with the torch still illuminated, she stated something I've recalled each day since. "Mom, I believe great-grandma would have adored this lake." I wept into my cushion after she dozed. My daughter discussed a woman who had departed 2 years earlier, the way most children discuss someone they encountered yesterday afternoon. We drove back on a Thursday. 9 days without a proper wash, 1 completed drawing pad, and a sunburn across my left forearm from the canoe. I informed Ivy we'd halt at the family residence on the return to Brattleboro, so she could retrieve The Wind in the Willows for evening reading. She said, okay. Without raising her eyes from a drawing of a common loon, she was tinting with the last of her 2B pencils. The journey from Lake Willoughby to Whitfield requires about 2 hours through the Green Mountains. I utilized the quiet to mentally note what required organizing at work, what preservation funds were pending, what papers needed approvals. When we arrived in the driveway at 4:15 in the afternoon, the porch lamp was illuminated. The post was heaped against the front entrance. 5 days' quantity, perhaps 6. My parents' vehicle was absent from the driveway. I messaged my mother, no reply. I messaged my father, nothing. I utilized the backup key from beneath the 3rd paving stone, the one Cordelia had positioned there in 1974, and no one had ever shifted. The residence was tidy, exceptionally tidy. Vacuum lines on the corridor carpet, recent and even. A vanilla-fragranced candle alight on the kitchen surface. The candle my mother only ignites when she's attempting to conceal another odor. I proceeded toward the east wing. The corridor is 11 paces. I know because I've been tallying them since I was 4 years old, and when you mature in a residence with a library, tallying becomes instinctive. The library entrance was ajar. The ceiling fluorescent was activated. Cordelia had demanded table lamps exclusively. Ceiling illumination harms bindings across decades. Someone had activated the switch and departed from it. I advanced inside. The space smelled like grime and vanilla, not paper, not leather, not beeswax finish. The racks were vacant. I tallied them. I don't know why that was my initial impulse, but it was, the archivist in me, I suppose, needing to assess before I could lament. Shelf A1 through L17, 217 positions. Every one of them unoccupied. Grime shapes where the bindings had rested, faint rectangles of deeper timber preserved by years of shadow. The mahogany reading seat sat by the south window precisely where it had always sat, but the illumination falling across its padding appeared incorrect. Too vivid, too continuous. No volumes on the racks to ease the brightness. On the seat padding was a folded receipt. Halloran & Sons Rare Books, Manhattan, dated 5 days earlier, total. $165,000. Seller, Richard Boyd. I lifted it. My hands were trembling, so I positioned it on the seat arm and read it level. My father had initialed every sheet. My mother had attested on page 4. The deal included complete image records, origin confirmation, and a verified check placed into their shared account at Granite State Savings. $165,000 for 217 volumes that did not belong to them. I heard the front entrance behind me, light footsteps on hardwood. Ivy was positioned in the doorway. She gazed beyond me at the racks the way you gaze at a space in a vision, acknowledging the form but not the vacancy. I moved sideways to obstruct her sight. "Honey, return to the vehicle, please." She didn't shift. Her eyes located the 3rd rack on the south barrier, the position where the green leather Wind in the Willows had remained for 11 years. Then she rotated and proceeded back down the corridor. She didn't weep. She didn't pose a query. 10 years old, and she comprehended before I voiced a single term. I sat in the reading seat. The padding was chilled. I did not weep either. I was already tallying other elements. Receipts, titles, dates, and the quantity of days it would require to restore every volume to every rack. My parents arrived home at 7 that evening, carrying a sack from a spa in Stowe and a bottle of wine from a vineyard on Route 100. My mother was wearing fresh earrings. Small gold circles I'd never observed before. My father was humming something. They entered grinning. I was seated at the kitchen table with my hands joined and the receipt from Halloran and Sons beneath my left palm. Ivy was in the living area with her drawing pad, sketching nothing. "Mom, where are the volumes?" My mother positioned the spa sack on the surface. She inclined her head the way she does when she's about to clarify something she regards as too evident for debate. Oh dear, they were merely accumulating grime in that ancient, unsettling space. Brent located such a fine trader in New York. We performed a service for everyone. She stated it with the content calm of a woman who believed she'd resolved an issue nobody else had the bravery to tackle. Vanessa's sons are going to possess the most remarkable media room. We even obtained a popcorn device. The expert kind, like at a genuine theater. My father uncorked the wine. Darling, those volumes weren't assisting anyone merely resting in there. I regarded him. Did you scan the dedication inside any of them? My mother gestured with her hand. Cordelia's minor notes. Dear, she's been absent 3 years. It's time to exist in the current. I regarded the wine glass my father was pouring. I regarded the spa sack. I approximated the price of my mother's fresh earrings against the remainder of $165,000 minus a media room setup, and a popcorn device formed like a fire hydrant. Then I rose, "Thank you for the meal." I proceeded to the living area, retrieved Ivy's coat, and said, "Let's depart, honey." We drove home in the darkness. I did not lift my voice. I did not bang the entrance. I shut it the way you shut a volume you intend to revisit. The journey from Whitfield to Brattleboro requires 40 minutes on Route 9. Ivy dozed before the second exit ramp. She awoke at the fifth, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. "Mom, did Grandma dispose of them?" "Yes, honey." She was silent. I observed the dashboard timer because it was the only glow in the vehicle and I couldn't cease tracking elements. 4 minutes of quiet. Then, did she dispose of the green one? I believe so. But I'm going to locate them. All of them, all of them. Okay. She rotated toward the window and pressed her forehead against the glass. I have approved payroll documents for 14 staff. I have approved preservation funds worth 6 figures. I have approved condolence cards at 3 burials where I meant every term. I have never held a single syllable as weighty as that one. Okay. It carried everything she couldn't express at 10 years old. Trust and sorrow, and a query she was too dignified to voice aloud. Can you truly retrieve them? I drove the remaining 30 miles in quiet, one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting on the manila folder of foundation records I'd extracted from the cabinet before departing the residence. My mother hadn't observed me take it. She'd been too occupied describing the popcorn device's butter heating function. If you've ever assured your child a vow you weren't certain you could fulfill, and then passed the next 30 miles in quiet determining precisely how to fulfill it regardless. Leave a note with the word binder. Remain with me. I want you to witness what occurs when a silent woman reveals one. Subscribe so the remainder of this tale reaches you. That night, after Ivy dozed clutching a library softcover instead of an original edition, I sat at the kitchen table and revealed the folder. Inside was a record I hadn't examined in 4 years. A lasting loan title, 22 pages, 3 signatures, and 1 stipulation that was about to deprive my parents of everything they possessed. 3 in the morning, Ivy asleep down the corridor, kitchen table covered in records. I had the foundation document open on my laptop, the PDF I'd preserved to my drive in 2010, the year Cordelia signed the original title. Beside the laptop, a printout of IRS Publication 561 on qualified evaluations and recovery rules. Beside that, the Halloran and Sons website, displaying a refined image of David Halloran standing before a barrier of calfskin bindings with his arms folded. And the expression of a man who has passed 40 years managing objects that outlast their possessors. 40 miles north, the mahogany reading seat sat vacant in the East Wing Library. I could sense its absence. I know that sounds illogical for a woman who indexes origins for a living, but that seat had supported 4 generations of buoyed females reading aloud to their girls. It was the only item of furniture in the residence that counted, and it was sitting in a space that no longer held any purpose to continue. I revealed the lasting loan title, 22 pages, notarized by the state of Vermont, submitted with the Secretary of State's office, bearing the foundation emblem and 3 signatures. Cordelia Boyd, Evelyn Marsh, and Nathan Pell, Foundation Counsel. Section 4 outlined the assortment. Section 5 outlined the stipulations. Section 6 designated the recipient, Ivy Boyd, age 6 at time of modification, with lifetime entry and rejection power over any transfer. Section 7 was headed Recapture. I examined it twice, then a third time because the figures were substantial enough to demand confirmation. Any unauthorized transfer of the assortment by any individual other than the designated recipient shall form a recapture occurrence. Activating complete back levy evaluation for all years of provisional relief, with legal interest and 75% fine. I lifted my phone and drafted an email to Evelyn Marsh, Foundation Chair. Subject line, lasting loan violation. Call me at 7, 3 sentences in the content. I pressed send at 3:19 and did not rest for the remainder of the night. Evelyn phoned at 6:58. She did not say good morning. She said, Danielle, what occurred? I told her in under 4 minutes. She listened without interjecting. Evelyn had been Cordelia's nearest companion for 42 years and the Foundation's chair since its establishment. She did not squander terms, she did not console me. When I concluded, she was silent for 6 seconds. Then she said, open the title. Section 7, I already have it open. Good. Read me the recapture rule. I read it aloud the way I read everything, steadily, without stress, allowing the wording to bear its own mass. When I concluded, Evelyn said, your parents owe the IRS roughly $412,000, back levies from 2010 through today, plus legal interest at the federal rate, plus the 75% fine for unauthorized transfer of provisionally exempt property. That's the federal figure. On the state side, they forfeit provisional relief going forward. That's another $30,000 a year in property levies that the town of Whitfield will now charge at full market worth. And because the relief was linked to on-site conservation, the IRS will impose a federal tax claim on the property for the complete sum owed. Between the claim, the back levies, and the new yearly charge, maintaining the residence becomes financially unfeasible. They'll have to dispose of it to cover what they owe, and the volumes. Foundation assets. We have first right of retrieval under Section 9. If Halloran assists, he reimburses and restores. If he doesn't, Nathan submits in federal court by Friday. I noted everything on a yellow legal pad, not the laptop. Paper doesn't fail, and paper doesn't upload to a cloud my mother might reach through my father's shared account. Evelyn was the only individual alive who could utter $400,000 the way others utter past the salt. She provided me the figures, the deadlines, and the next 3 actions. That was superior to sympathy, accumulating grime, $412,000 of grime, 9:14 the following morning. I phoned Halloran and Sons from the parking area of the Whitfield Library. A receptionist transferred me. David Halloran answered on the second ring. His tone was controlled and calm. The tone of a man who has passed 4 decades managing objects worth more than vehicles and has acquired never to appear startled. Mr. Halloran, my name is Danielle Boyd. I'm the vice chair of the Cordelia Boyd Heritage Library Foundation. You recently acquired 217 pieces from my parents, Richard and Margaret Boyd. A short pause. Yes. Richard Boyd delivered a complete list. Tagged, evaluated, paid out last Tuesday. We finished the deal in person at the family residence. Have any been resold? Not yet. We index before offering. Standard procedure for an assortment of this standard. We're still imaging the rack and plates. Mr. Halloran, those pieces are on lasting loan from a 501c3 foundation. They are foundation assets, not individual holdings. Section 7 of the lasting loan title activates a recovery rule at unauthorized transfer. I'm formally requesting restoration. Silence. 4 seconds. I tallied because I tally everything now. Ms. Boyd, I'd like to examine that title. I'll be in Manhattan by 6 this evening with the original. Another pause. 2 seconds. Drive carefully. I hung up and sat in the parking area with the engine active. My hands were firm. 14 years of managing irreplaceable records teaches you something practical. The most vital phone call of your life should sound exactly like every other phone call you've ever made. No shake in the tone. No haste in the wording. State the realities. Name the process. Offer the proof. Let the other individual compute. I exited the area and drove home to collect Ivy. I wasn't going to leave my daughter in Brattleboro while I drove to Manhattan. She was accompanying me. She was going to view her volumes, and she was going to observe her mother retrieve them. Interstate 91 South, 4 hours and 40 minutes to Manhattan. Ivy sat in the rear seat with a soft-cover copy of A Wrinkle in Time from the Brattleboro Public Library. The lasting loan title sat in a manila envelope on the passenger seat, 22 pages that weighed less than a sandwich and more than anything else in the vehicle. Somewhere past the Massachusetts border, Ivy raised her eyes from her volume. "Mom, what's recovery? It's when something returns to its true possessor. Like dogs, sometimes like dogs." She pondered this for a moment. "Mom, why didn't you inform Grandma about the foundation matter before she disposed of the volumes?" "Because I believed if I never stated it aloud, she'd never perform anything that made me have to." "That's not very wise." "No, honey, it wasn't." That was the first time in her life my daughter told me I wasn't wise, and the first time I concurred with her. I'd passed 7 years evading conflict with my mother. 7 years of immersing myself in manuscripts and conservation funds and index entries, because paper doesn't dispute back, doesn't give you the quiet treatment for 6 weeks, doesn't tell you you're being unappreciative for safeguarding what a deceased woman left your daughter. Expert seclusion, that's the courteous name for what I had. The true name is timidity dressed in a sweater and preservation gloves. Cordelia's tone again, arriving the way it does. "The volumes are Ivy's legacy. Don't permit anyone to disregard." I hadn't disregarded, I'd just been too silent about recalling. Somewhere around Hartford, Ivy dozed with the soft cover open on her chest. Page 162 faced on against her collar. I drove the remaining 2 hours listening to the highway and reflecting about the word stewardship. Cordelia employed it the way others employ the word love. Carefully, precisely, and only when she intended it. I was 34 and just starting to grasp what it demanded. Halloran and Sons occupied the second floor of a slim brownstone on East 61st Street. Mahogany panels, brass reading lamps, gallery illumination angled to enhance leather bindings. David Halloran met us at the entrance, 63, silver-haired, reading glasses on a tortoiseshell chain. With a handshake that informed you he'd been evaluating original editions longer than I'd been alive. He regarded Ivy. "She's welcome," I said. "She's the recipient." He nodded once and guided us downstairs to the indexing room. Climate-controlled, 68 degrees, 45% humidity. I knew without inquiring, because those are the figures every scarce book expert carries in their mind the way paramedics carry blood pressure ranges. 217 volumes were positioned across 5 long tables under gentle ceiling light. Each book had a yellow sticky note with a temporary index number written in Halloran's precise script. He guided us along the tables without speaking. Ivy located it on table 3, the green leather wind in the willows. She lifted it with both palms, invariably both palms, and opened it to page 47. "Mom, my pencil mark is still here." She'd made a tiny 2B line in the margin 18 months ago, marking the place where mole first meets rat by the riverbank. Halloran, standing 2 feet behind her, said quietly, "Yes." I observed that when we were indexing. I left it. Ivy turned to the front cover, discovered the bookplate, followed Cordelia's script with her forefinger. "For Ivy, who will keep them safe?" She shut the volume and pressed it against her chest with both arms. She did not request if she could take it. She merely held it. Halloran regarded me. "Every single one has the bookplate, manually inscribed, personal dedication to your daughter. That degree of individualization is uncommon. Ms. Boyd, your father didn't mention any of this when he delivered them." "I know he didn't." I positioned the title on the indexing table. Halloran sat down, put on his glasses, and examined for 11 minutes. I know because Ivy tallied the pages and I tallied the clock on the wall behind his head. Neither of us spoke. When he concluded, he removed his glasses, positioned them beside the title, and said, "Ms. Boyd, I acquired property that wasn't theirs to dispose." "Not stolen," I said. "Disposed by individuals who didn't lawfully possess it. There's a distinction for you. There isn't one for my parents." He stood, proceeded to a gray steel filing cabinet behind the indexing desk, and extracted the acquisition agreement. 4 pages. My father's driver's license photocopy on page 1. My mother's signature as witness on page 4. An itemized list with a Polaroid of every volume valued above $5,000 on page 3. And in each Polaroid, visible in the lower left corner of the open front cover, Cordelia's bookplate. For Ivy, who will keep them safe? Imaged, recorded, sitting in Halloran's expert records. He turned to the list sheets and tapped the page. Every volume still had the original gift receipt tucked inside the front cover. The receipts Cordelia had positioned there herself in 2010 when the lasting loan was formalized. Each one read, "Lasting loan from the Cordelia Boyd Heritage Library Foundation. Not for sale." Removal activates recapture occurrence under Title Section 7. My father had signed the acquisition agreement.
Craving shocking revenge, chilling horror, and jaw-dropping relationship drama. If you love revenge, horror, and jaw-dropping relationship stories straight from Reddit, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Reddit Tales Time, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. More twists, more drama, more tales, coming up next.